guys, it's Zach back with another review, this time of the Chilkey Glacier LWL8K, and we'll cover its little buddy, the LWM, as well. This is the second mouse from Chilkey. This shape in the large is much more claw focused, and they made some distinct improvements while keeping the screen on the button. And yes, if you're wondering, this is the same screen, and the medium is the same shell as the Thunder Robot mouse, with the real question here being, how good were these improvements that Chilkey made from their first mouse? What were my thoughts on the medium to begin with? And does this large mouse fit into your budget and setup as your claw main? Let's find out. So here we have it, the Chilkey Glacier LWL8K. Their first mouse being the Glacier LW Medium. Not the best naming scheme, I'll be honest. Would have probably done something different there for the search engine optimization, but that's just me. This original mouse, which I'll also cover in some detail in this video, is sort of a medium shape, mid-backish hump, sort of all-arounder. It's got some back flare, it's got some nice side curvature here. It's really, really comfortable, and I perform really well with it. There are a few features of the mouse that make me not want to main it though, and I'll talk about those. The Glacier LWL, however, is basically a Sora V2-ish shape. As you can see here, it's got that stronger back flare, that nice taper, and that very rear biased hump here. Very similar to the MCHOSE L7 Plus that we just saw come out. Chilkey did make some key improvements on this, and they have their standard, let me flip it on here, screen that shows you your connection method, DPI, polling rate will show if it connects. Hold on, where's the dongle? And there you go, your 2K hertz as well as your battery life. A definite departure from their first mouse. Very solid aesthetic. Love the trim and the scroll wheel, but I'll shut up. They're really annoyed to have to reshoot this entire review, so I'm going to try to one-shot roll through this thing real quick. Here we go. Clicks. Ratios, bad. Next. Just kidding. These do have a new fog blue, I guess, optical from Racia, and they feel just like the old Racias. They're my least favorite switch you could possibly put in a mouse. I don't know why you would ever do it, but they did it here. To be honest, they're fully functional. They're fine. There's a bit more pre-travel than I'd like to see here, but they do function totally fine in game. It's just not my favorite click feel. It's a little cheap and hollow feeling, and there's also some side-to-side play here. Nothing crazy, but it definitely is present. So overall, you probably know if you do or don't like Racias. They used to be Pulsar's switch of choice before they went to some binned FE opticals, which feel absolutely amazing in this mouse. I'll be reviewing a bunch of Pulsar mice here soon, but overall the clicks just not my favorite. Scroll wheel, extremely, it's almost like stiff. The steps in the scroll wheel are a bit too heavy. I do not like the feel of it at all. Very notchy, also very quiet. The click itself though, medium, spammable. No complaints from me on the click. Not the lightest though, if that's what you're looking for. Coming to the bottom here, the other questionable feature of this mouse. Why in the world are these skates so small? I don't really understand. We have all this flat bottom space here for nice big pads. We should have probably gone with them. These are extremely thick and well-rounded, but I will say in use on both this AC, Pro Mid Neon, and the Heian, they pick up too much texture. Good solid skates, like they leave a bit of texture for feedback. This feels just really rough, and I don't like that feedback. So these skates are also not a pass for me. A definitive downgrade from the larger pad skates they had in the original Chilkey Glacier M. These dots, I leave them and take them. They're nice for stability, but like these, much better skates. Would prefer these all day long. And the clicks in this, they were mechanical, and they were honestly just a mushy, not great feeling mechanical in this mouse as well. So the clicks, Chilkey has not nailed down yet for what it's worth. The scroll wheel though in this medium was very spammable, and it felt really good overall. I had no complaints about this scroll wheel, and I like these skates as well. Open bottom, doesn't bother me. The coating on this mouse is present. There was not one in the original mouse, at least this transparent purple I had. It was pretty much bare plastic. This is like a 7 out of 10. It's slightly rubberized, a little chalky, almost like it reminds me of the LG GLA1 if you've tried that mouse. I'm happy they added a coating, but I wish it was better. It does get the job done though. And then beyond that, build integrity, there is some side flex here, and you can actuate the side buttons when applying pressure. Both sides have a little bit of flex. Nothing on the top, back, or the front though. And then there is some bottom flex here, which you would sort of expect in the mouse in this range. Quite a bit, you can really force it there, but nothing you really feel in game. Overall, the implementation of this mouse is fine, not great. It's not enough to compel me to use it over the MCHOSE L7 Plus, I would say, at least at this exact moment, just because clicks and coating are so huge for me. The coating on this is satisfactory. I don't like Racia opticals though. I would recommend doing aftermarket skates, but this is another problem with the skates. The tracks are so thin, you might have trouble finding dots that fit in there. So like just really a lack of foresight as far as the bottom of this mouse goes. Something to look into and probably improve in the future for Chilkey there. And now coming to shape comparisons, I actually sold my Sora V2 in the last week, but I do have the MCHOSE L7 Plus here, which we found was like a 2%, 1% larger Sora V2. So we'll do the shape comparison, and it's the same. There's not much to talk about here. As you can see, same front profile, same button height, same hump profile, same bottom. This is a Sora V2 clone through and through. You'll see in the measurements later that this is even a little bit larger than the MCHOSE L7 Plus, so like it's getting a little bit closer to an original Sora, but still has the shape features of a Sora V2. So I guess if you're looking for an even slightly larger mouse than the L7 Plus, which was a slightly larger Sora V2, then this could be the mouse for you if you're down with those Raisha opticals. But in my opinion, the arm runs in this just feel much better. They have much better large pad skates. MCHOSE's coating is also a step up. Their scroll wheel is not nearly as stiff. It feels a lot better. And their side buttons, which I just realized I forgot to talk about on the Chilkey Glacier L. Whoops, let's do that now. I like these better as well. Coming to the side buttons that I completely skipped. These are not glossy and they're not coated, which is the least good version of a side button you can have. But I won't complain about them if they feel good, and they feel different. The front one is good, light, spannable, feels nice. The back one feels a little dead. It's just sort of sinks into the shell too far. It doesn't feel tactile. You can see that sinking in right there. Not too much pre-travel, but overall the back button just doesn't feel really good to use. It functions fine in game. They both work pretty well, but if the back and the front both felt like the front side button, I would say a strong pass. So really just a mid side button implementation here as well. And then back to the shape, not much more to say. We have a slightly larger Sora V2-ish shape. So let's jump to the performance and my overall experience with this mouse, which was fine. If you told me there were no mice left in the world and I had to main this for the rest of my life, I could easily do it. I wouldn't complain too much. I'd get used to the Raishas. I'd probably just use a smoother pad if I'm being honest with you, because these just don't feel, it's jarring when you use these skates compared to some other skates on like a textured hybrid pad like the Pro Mid. The screen is cool, but it's not a functionality that I really care about because I know what my mouse is set at. And my mice never die. I guess the battery life is the best function on the screen, but it's just not something that really concerns me. I will say the aesthetic of this mouse is pretty darn cool. There are versions that have gold hieroglyphics on the bottom, which is what I was told I was getting. I did unfortunately not get those mice. A little unfortunate. Here's my random disclaimer, by the way. This and a black version was sent out to me for review by Chilkey, but it did not affect my thoughts and opinions on the mouse whatsoever, which you probably gleaned from my really honest opinion that I've given about the mouse so far. I will say the black one was pretty similar overall in coating, but the scroll wheel on that one was even stiffer than this one. It was actually the worst scroll wheel experience I've ever had in the mouse on the black one, just because the scroll was so stiff. I felt like I was working out the muscles in my finger, if that's even a real thing. Ask phalanges. Implementation wise, my thoughts on this mouse, they're pretty lukewarm again. It's a great shape. It's a solid coating. It does feel good in hand. It's just the skates and the clicks that really are a drawback for me. I will say performance wise though, like wow, this is really, really good. It's got 8K hertz, 3950. Something about Chilkey's sensor implementations, which I don't know why, feels just crispy, buttery, smooth, and clean. It honestly feels a bit better than MCHOSE and ATK, and I might just be on something when I say that, but this felt really, really good in Kovac, specifically on this OLED monitor. It felt extremely responsive. Mouse tester checked out from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess those are all polling rates now. 1, 2, 4, and 8K felt great on this mouse. So the performance is great here, which brings me to my point. I think if you just take these two mice and you mash the good parts together, take this coating, maybe make it a little bit better. This aesthetic is awesome. You can keep both these shapes, that's fine, but get rid of this raw plastic, do some bigger pad skates, and then just use some mechanical switches or some armor and opticals. Chilkey could be killing it. The other thing about these mice is the price. This was, I believe, $90 when it came out and still is. That's a bit much. It had some really awesome features like these really protruding little like peak here side buttons. Those felt really good. Honestly, this mouse is really well implemented. I just didn't like the lack of a coating and the clicks were kind of mid. And then the large here, it's currently on Kickstarter, which is the choice. It worked really well for the T-Volution Terra Pro, I'll say. I don't know why we were going to Kickstarter. Maybe it helps to get funding and just some like sway behind the mouse, but we've made the mouse at this point. It's like $80 when you convert it from the price that's on there, which is not a terrible value, I'll be honest, but I mean, with what the price is of this MCHOSE L7 Plus, it's a hard sell, particularly because Kickstarters are typically a slightly lower price than retail. So you're probably looking at $100, $110 in this when it comes out in its final form. Good, not great implementation, absolutely stellar performance, possibly a bit overpriced. I think I'm moving the right direction from Chilkey. I think if they can just sort of take the advice I gave here, even if you apply it to these mice and make a V2, I think they might sell really well, make them a little bit cheaper, but I don't know what their bottom line is, so I don't want to tell them what to put their mouse price at. And honestly, if you have a banger of a mouse, like if you put it all together, you could charge $90 to $100. You're in like hit scan hyperlight range. You're in the range with like the duckbill should cost, where you can get it on AliExpress. You're around the range of like a used Crazy Light, and then even the used market for these would be even better and more affordable. Even like an Endgame Gear OP1 8K is around the same price, so it's not an egregious, outrageous price. I just expect my mice to have a little bit better of an implementation if I'm at a price point in this range. Let's hit the software real quick. They do have a very solid WebDriver here as we go into it. Looks sort of like ROMs, not sure if it's a reskin, not sure if it's just a lower version, might be original. Either way, it works just fine. Pulling rate up to 8K here, as you can see. All the controls you would want. If you want high speed mode, you have to get down to 1000 hertz because I believe it's on by default virtually with 240 4 and 8K. Drop D mouse to 0. That doesn't go to 0 in some software, so that's good to note. LED can go down to 0.7 because of the 3950, but not in the 0.1 increments below 1mm. And that's really about it for this WebDriver. It works just fine, and I don't really have any complaints. Time for weights and measurements, and I'm just going to reiterate how thrilled I am to be shooting the same footage for the second time. Stock, this mouse comes in at 48.2 grams. That's just a little bit heavier than the MCHOSE L7 Plus, and about 7 or 8 grams heavier than the Sora V2 and the RKM3 from Royal Kludge. So on the heavier side of these mice, but on the lighter side of mice, sub 50 grams is absolutely fine, and I have no complaints about the weight. I'll measure this thing up and down and tell you how it compares to the MCHOSE L7 Plus. We have the mouse tapering down to 54.7mm in the middle, which about lines up with the 54.6mm I see here on the L7 Plus. I'm clocking the back flare at 63.4mm in comparison to a smaller 62.9mm here from MCHOSE. So definitely a difference there, a bit more back flare. And I'm getting Glacier hump height at 37.7mm, which is also an exact match to the L7 Plus. So very similar shapes here, a bit more of a like flare out on the back here, which is kind of apparent top down on the Chilkey Glacier. So again, leaning a bit more towards the Sora V1, but keeping the Sora V2 shape characteristics of slight changes. So honestly, these feel pretty similar in hand, even with the slight differences here as you saw the rest of the measurements line up, but I'll leave it to you to decide which one's better. So that about wraps up for my thoughts on the larger of the Chilkey Glaciers. It is a good mouse overall, and I was very impressed by the performance, but there were a few implementation shortcomings that caused me to not want to main this mouse going forward, and the price is just a little bit high for my liking. If they could clean just a few things up around skates and clicks, and a little bit of maybe side button QC, Chilkey could be 100% onto something, and they could move into the sort of like mid high quality tier that Lamzu, HitScan, and I guess these new premium offerings from ATK sit in. Overall, I'm still thankful to Chilkey for sending these mice out, as it was a good time testing them, and they are moving in the definite right direction to some of the changes they made in their mice, but a few other decisions that I found questionable. Hopefully they clean those up in the future and release an absolute banger. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on X at DasherZach, and check out my Discord server where we talk about peripherals. You can also check out the MouseCast podcast. It releases once a week, and we typically go live during it. And with that, we'll see you.